Hey everyone, long time no talk. Ben here, and just wanted to say sorry it's been so long since I've done a new video. I know I promised to do a couple more retrospectives like I did for the Halloween series, but I came down with the flu pretty bad about a week and a half ago, and just wasn't up to doing any new videos. So what I'm going to do now is going to do my favorite horror film series ever, and focus on the Friday the 13th films. Now, being that there's 12 films, if you count Freddy vs. Jason in the reboot, it's going to take a little bit to get through this, so if you guys are going to stick with me, I appreciate it, and I will give you my overview on what I still think is one of the best horror series of all time. As much as I love the Halloweens, Nightmare on Elm Streets, Friday the 13th will always be my favorite. To start off, I did want to point out that I do have the other box set that came out in 2004. It was called From Crystal Lake to Manhattan, and it featured the same, it was the original release. It was 2 movies on 1 disc. But this was awesome because originally Paramount was just releasing bare bones DVDs with nothing but the trailers on them. So it was nice to get something with some special features. And it also came with a bonus disc that for a while was only available when I got it at Best Buy. And it was called Jason Forever. It was where Peter Brack, who wrote Crystal Lake Memories, had a panel at one of the horror conventions that featured Ari Lehman, Warrington Gillette, C.J. Graham, and Kane Hodder, and it's now available on the deluxe edition of Part 2, but for a while there that was the only place that I had seen it, so it's nice to have that. And I do have, of course, this set that came out just last month. So we'll start off with talking about the original Friday the 13th, starring Betsy Palmer, Adrienne King, Harry Crosby, Kevin Bacon, and of course Ari Lehman as young Jason. Now, the original Friday the 13th was, of course, directed by Sean Cunningham, written by Victor Miller, featured the awesome music from Harry Manfredini, as you can hear in the background, and of course Tom Savini's makeup is just off the charts awesome, and still to this day I think is just amazing feats in makeup effects. The film is just still scary. I still think it's really one of the scariest films ever made. It's a very much a whodunit, more so than the later sequels in the series, because you don't know who the killer is. And Betsy Palmer, of course, is just amazing as Mrs. Voorhees. I still think, and even though as much as I love the 2009 remake, I'm glad that they didn't try to cast somebody into that role in a significant character in that movie. Like, she was just in a flashback scene, but because no one can play Mrs. Voorhees like Betsy Palmer does. She was so creepy. Just did an amazing job in this film, and Adrienne King is amazing as Alice, and just the fight between her and Mrs. Voorhees, and as she cuts her head off. I mean, there's so many great scenes in this, and the arrows through Harry Crosby, pinning him to the door, and Kevin Bacon's death is very memorable, and then of course the end where Jason jumps out of the lake. Everything about this, and the music is just perfect. Big fan. Big fan of this film, and I'm glad that it's getting, they put it out uncut. I wish they would have done this for more of the films in the series, but it was nice to see this with the original, deaths as they were meant to be before the MPAA, kind of made them trim some things back. And I have it on Blu-ray. I have so many copies of these movies. I have it on Blu-ray as well. So just, yeah, great film. There's not enough good things I can say about it. Big fan of this one. Put this over here. So now we'll pick up with Part 2, which I also have on the Deluxe and Blu-ray. Now, Part 2, I think is a great sequel. you know, for the longest time, I think prior to reading Crystal Lake Memories, I'd always thought that Warrington Gillette had been the guy that played Jason through the whole film. Come to find out, he had taken so much credit away from Steve Dash, who was limited to just, I think he was limited to a stunt credit. But he actually played Jason in the film, and Warrington Gillette's scene is really the scene at the end of the film where Jason jumps through the window to grab Jenny at the end. But I think that part 2 is a very good sequel. I love how it picks up right with, you know, Alice, you know, several months after what happened in part 1. She's still recovering from what she went through, and Jason takes his revenge on her for killing his mother, and then picking up 5 years later with a new counselor training center along the same river, or as on the same lakeside as Camp Crystal Lake, and Jason sort of being this kind of hermit kind of entity that's living in the woods. He doesn't have the hockey mask in this film. He's got the sack head on and has this creepy little cabin in the back where he keeps his severed mother's head on an altar. And I mean, there was so many creepy things about this. I mean, as much as I love Jason with the hockey mask, I do think with the sack head he has, there's a little extra creepiness to him. And Steve Dash did a great job playing him. I also think Amy Steele as Jenny, I wish she would have been in more films because I really loved her in this film. I think she was a great, you know, counterpoint, or, you know, picking up the heroine role from Adrienne King. She did a great job. Very tough as nails girl, and took Jason on, especially the scene with the chainsaw. I love that scene. And some other, you know, John Fury as Paul, he's awesome. There's some good people in this one too, and of course Steve Miner directed this one and would direct part 3 as well. And it's great scenes in this one, some great kills. The poor scene with Mark in the wheelchair getting hit in the face with the machete and then going down the stairs, some pretty memorable ones. Love Friday the 13th part 2. I mean, I think it's a great sequel. Really has the feel and tone of the original, and carries it over nicely. So now we are on to part 3 in 3D, one of my favorites, and I do have the Blu-ray as well. Now part 3 is my favorite, and I think this is the movie where I really became a Jason fan, and I think it's because he became a cult figure with this film by getting the hockey mask. And this is my sideshow from the image of part 3, Jason. It's like one of my favorite items that I have of Jason. And he was just a badass in part 3. I mean, you know, Richard Brooker did a great job playing Jason in this film. Very menacing, bigger than I think they had portrayed him in part 2. But, you know, when he got the hockey mask in this, I mean, it was all over for me. I thought Jason was, you know, scary but cool. And I was pretty young when I saw this film. I think it was about 9 when I saw this film. But, you know, some great 3D stuff in this film. You know, the harpoon going at the girl that gets stabbed underneath the hammock, the guy that gets chopped in as he's walking on his hands, and then of course, you know, the guy's eye popping, Jason squeezing the guy's head and the eye popping out. I mean, some good stuff. And just the biker gang, I love Ali and Fox and Loco. They're just great. Just a great fun film, and still holds up well. Still love this film to this day. And Steve Miner did another great job directing this one. And like I said, Brooker is just, you know, one of my favorite Jasons. Just, you know, he's scary in this film. Very scary. And, you know, I've enjoyed this film, and it was great to finally get to see it in 3D because I was too young to see it when I was a kid in the theaters. So, you know, it doesn't look as good watching it on your TV, but still I thought it was awesome. Big fan of part 3. So, got 3 down, a few more to go. Stay tuned for the next part, which will pick up with final chapter.